The year was 2187, and the dry red world of Mars gave up its secrets grudgingly, one blood-colored grain of dust at a time. Dr. Elena Zhao wiped sweat from her brow, the environmental systems in her excavation suit struggling against her own nervous energy. 3 kilometers beneath the southern ice cap, her team had carved out a pressurized cavern after months of drilling, following anomalous energy readings that had defied explanation. The Interplanetary Security Council had explicitly denied her expedition permits, citing destabilization risks. But Elena had never been one to let bureaucracy stand between her and discovery. Final section coming down now, called Y, her chief engineer, as the plasma drill cut through the last barrier of compressed regolith. Atmosphere reading stable. Elena's heart raced. Something waited beyond that wall. Something that didn't belong on Mars, didn't belong anywhere in the solar system. She'd staked her reputation on it, burned bridges at the Academy, and redirected funds from 3 different research grants to finance this unsanctioned dig. The wall crumbled, revealing a small chamber beyond. And there it was. "My God," whispered Dr. Johansson. "They're xenolinguist. It's artificial." The object hovered motionless above a pedestal of material unlike any Martian rock. Sleek, almost liquid in appearance, yet solid. The artifact itself was roughly pyramidal, its surface covered in glyphs that seemed to shift subtly when viewed from different angles. Faint blue energy pulsed beneath its metallic skin in perfect metronomic intervals. "Definitely not human manufacture," Elena said, her voice steady despite the adrenaline surging through her veins. "Preliminary dating from the surrounding strata suggests it's been here for at least 60,000 years." She stepped closer, ignoring safety protocols that dictated remote analysis first. This moment, this was what she lived for. First contact with undeniable proof of extraterrestrial intelligence. Her scanner showed no radiation beyond normal background levels. The only anomaly was a faint electromagnetic field emanating from the object, so subtle it barely registered. "Dr. Zhao, we've got company," crackled her comms officer's voice. "Transport craft landing topside. Corporate markings. Looks like Axiom Dynamics security forces." Elena cursed. How the hell did they find us? "Someone on the council must have leaked our location," Johansson said. "Axiom's been hunting for alien tech since that incident on Titan. Pack up everything. We're taking the artifact with us," Elena ordered, ignoring the shocked expressions of her team. "They'll just disappear it into some corporate black site. That's against every protocol." Y began. The ground shook as something heavy landed on the surface above. "We don't have time to debate this," Elena snapped. "Get the containment field ready." Outside their makeshift camp, the first explosion sounded. Axiom wasn't even bothering with negotiations. As her team scrambled to secure equipment, Elena approached the artifact, setting up a portable containment field generator. The glyphs on its surface seemed to respond to her presence, shifting more rapidly, the blue pulsing growing stronger. Her scanner began picking up unexpected data. The artifact was somehow scanning them back, focusing particularly on their cranial regions. "It's mapping our brains," she murmured in wonder. The ceiling of their excavation shuddered as weapons fire intensified above. Dust rained down on them. "Field ready in 10 seconds, Wei called. But they didn't have 10 seconds. The chamber access tunnel exploded inward as an Axiom tactical team breached their perimeter. Elena saw the corporate mercenaries charging through the dust, weapons raised. One fired, not at the team, but at the artifact's pedestal. "No!" Elena lunged forward, but it was too late. The containment field collapsed before it could fully form. The shot shattered part of the pedestal, disrupting whatever ancient technology had held the artifact stable for millennia. The pyramidal object pulsed once, brilliantly, blindingly, then erupted with energy. A beam of coherent light shot upward, burning through meters of Martian crust toward the sky. The mercenaries fell back in panic. And in Elena's scanner, she saw it, the artifact broadcasting outward, a signal of such complexity and power It overwhelmed her instruments. A signal directed not at Earth, not at the inner planets, but toward distant stars. "What have we done?" Johansson whispered. In that moment, as the artifact's glyphs rearranged themselves into what appeared to be a countdown, Alina understood the terrible truth. They hadn't just found a relic. They had activated a beacon. 93 days after the Mars incident, the countdown ended. Alina sat in the sterile interrogation room of the lunar security complex, where she'd been detained since the Martian catastrophe. As the media had dubbed it, 3 months of questions, accusations, and isolation. Yet she clung to one small victory. She'd managed to secure and smuggle out partial scans of the artifact before Axiom security had overwhelmed her team. The door slid open. Admiral Maya Kessler entered, her weathered face betraying no emotion. Not the usual interrogator. "Dr. Zhao." Kessler placed a tablet on the table. "We're moving you." "Another black site?" Alina asked wearily. "No, you're being reinstated." Kessler's voice was tight. "We've detected objects decelerating at the edge of our system. 8 vessels of unknown configuration approaching Neptune's orbit." Alina's blood ran cold. The signal worked. Apparently. Kessler's jaw clenched. "We need you at mission control. You're the closest thing we have to an expert on what's coming." The atmosphere at Earth's Unified Defense Command was electric with tension. Alina stood before the massive holographic display, watching as the alien fleet arranged itself in perfect geometric formation around Neptune. "They're broadcasting," announced Communications Chief Hiroshi Tanaka, a young prodigy whose fingers danced across his interface. "Signal directed at every electronic device on Earth simultaneously. They've bypassed all our security protocols, like they don't even exist." "Put it through," ordered General Winters. Every screen in the command center flickered, then resolved into the image of a being unlike anything humanity had ever encountered. Its form appeared to be living metal, flowing and reshaping itself with subtle, unsettling movements. Bioluminescent patterns pulsed across its surface in complex sequences. When it spoke, its voice resonated with harmonic undertones that made several technicians wince in discomfort. "I am Xylos, emissary of the archivists," the creature announced in flawless English. "Your species has activated a quarantine beacon. Protocol dictates immediate assessment and intervention." The UN Security Council, hastily assembled to respond to first contact, appeared on a split screen. The Secretary General stepped forward. "We welcome peaceful contact with your civilization, Emissary Xylos. The activation was accidental. Intention is irrelevant." Xylos interrupted, its form rippling. "The beacon exists to identify cognitive contamination. Your species has developed outside established parameters in a restricted development zone." Alina felt a chill run down her spine. She stepped forward. "What do you mean by cognitive contamination?" The alien's attention shifted to her, and Alina felt a strange pressure build behind her eyes as it studied her. "You are the one who interfaced directly with the beacon," Xylos stated. "Your neural architecture shows advanced signs of the contamination." The emissary's form expanded, revealing what appeared to be a coalition of different entities, 7 distinct morphologies integrated into a collective whole. "We are the archivists, preservers of galactic stability. We are 7 species unified in purpose, having accepted harmonization for the greater good." Its tone shifted, becoming colder. "Your species exhibits dangerous resonance patterns capable of disrupting established order. The contamination must not spread." General Winters stepped forward. "What exactly are you accusing us of?" "It is not an accusation. It is a diagnosis." Xylos displayed a holographic representation of human brain activity alongside something alien but oddly similar. "Your neural processes contain unique variance patterns, emotional instabilities that generate ripple effects in surrounding intelligence matrices. Put simply, you think incorrectly." Alina examined the neural comparison and had a flash of insight. "You're afraid of us." The room fell silent. Xylos's form condensed slightly, its luminescent patterns accelerating. Fear is inefficient. We are concerned with containment of a cognitive hazard. The alien's voice hardened. Your species will submit to harmonization through neural reconfiguration or face extinction. You have 48 hours to prepare your population for processing. As the transmission ended, Hiroshi called out, "Dr. Zhao." During the broadcast, I detected something in their transmission protocols. Patterns, vulnerabilities. I think their systems might be susceptible to certain types of disruption. Before Elena could respond, alarms blared throughout the command center. "All orbital defense platforms are offline," reported a technician, voice shaking. "They just turned them off somehow." On the main display, smaller archivist vessels were already detaching from the main fleet, accelerating toward Earth. Elena stared at the artifact data on her tablet, the glyphs that had rearranged themselves during the activation. She now recognized them as brain scan results, labeled with alien markers that translated approximately to aberrant and disruptive. "They're not just afraid of what we might do," she whispered. "They're afraid of what we are." Harmonization centers opened in every major city within 24 hours of the ultimatum. Elena watched in disgust from Admiral Kessler's hidden command bunker as the livestream showed thousands of humans voluntarily lining up outside these sleek alien structures. Corporate executives, politicians, and the ultra-wealthy pushed to the front of the lines, assured of preferred status in the new order. "How can they just surrender like that?" she asked, her voice tight with anger. Admiral Kessler's expression was grim. Fear. Opportunism. The archivists promised the compliant would retain partial autonomy. She turned away from the feed. "It's time to show you Operation Wildcard." The Admiral led Elena through a series of security checkpoints into the heart of the underground facility. What they entered wasn't just a bunker. It was mission control for humanity's last hope. "We've been preparing for first contact scenarios for decades," Kessler explained, "including hostile ones. This facility and 30 others, like it around the solar system, operate on quantum principles that seem to be invisible to archivist sensors." "How is that possible?" Elena asked, studying the advanced technology around her. "Because we developed it by accident," Kessler said with a thin smile. "A physicist's experiment with quantum entanglement created an unexpected side effect. Technology that operates slightly out of phase with normal spacetime. Useless for most applications, but perfect for staying hidden. A display activated, showing a map of solar system installations hidden in asteroids, planetary moons, and Earth's deep oceans. "We can't win a direct confrontation," Kessler continued, "but we can fight back." "Admiral," a communications officer interrupted. "The raid on the London processing ship was successful. Captain Chen's team is inbound with subjects." Elena and Kessler rushed to the medical wing, arriving as Special Forces troops escorted in 3 vacant-eyed civilians. "Harmonized," a doctor explained, scanning their brains. "Neural activity shows synchronized patterns. They respond to commands but exhibit no independent thought, no emotional response." Elena studied the brain scans, then compared them to her artifact data. "The archivists are imposing their own neural patterns on human minds," she observed, "erasing emotional variance. They're not killing us. They're making us like them." "Can it be reversed?" Kessler demanded. The doctor shook his head. "Not with our current understanding." 3 days later, Elena worked frantically in her makeshift lab, studying the interaction between human brainwaves and archivist technology. Hiroshi had joined her team, applying his pattern recognition genius to decode the alien systems. "There's something here," Elena muttered, replaying footage of an incident that had occurred during examination of a captured archivist drone. The machine had suffered what appeared to be a seizure when she'd been working directly with the Martian artifact. "Run it again," she told Hiroshi. "Focus on my neural patterns during the event." As they reviewed the data, Hiroshi pointed excitedly at a spike in the readings. "There, your brain activity generated a harmonic cascade when you experienced that moment of insight. The drone systems tried to process it and crashed. Alina's eyes widened. Our emotional thought patterns, they're not just different from theirs, they're actively disruptive. Their breakthrough was interrupted by alarms. On the monitors, they watched archivist forces converging on their location. "They found us," Hiroshi said, panic edging his voice. Alina made a split-second decision. Download everything to portable drives. And give me those modified communication devices your team was working on. Minutes later, as they evacuated through emergency tunnels, Alina transmitted her discovery to all resistance cells. Human emotional states, particularly intense ones, created neural patterns that disrupted archivist technology. In Singapore, Marine Platoon Delta was cornered, archivist troops closing in from all sides. Lieutenant Rivera received Alina's transmission and made a desperate gamble. She deployed the modified communication gear, broadcasting the harmonic patterns Alina had identified. "Focus on why you're fighting," she shouted to her soldiers. "Think about what you're protecting." As the platoon filled their minds with thoughts of home, family, and fierce determination, their combined emotional states amplified through the equipment. The advancing archivist troops suddenly faltered, their movements becoming erratic before they collapsed. The first human victory against the invaders spread hope through resistance networks worldwide. But their celebration was short-lived. Within hours, new archivist units appeared in orbit, sleek, ominous craft disgorging armored figures unlike the previous troops. These nullifiers moved with mechanical precision, scanning for emotional signatures, immune to the harmonic disruptions that had disabled their predecessors. The hunt had evolved. Poseidon's Cradle, humanity's final underwater stronghold, pulsed with activity 5 kilometers beneath the Pacific. Originally built as a deep-sea research facility, it now housed the largest concentration of free humans on Earth. Alina stared through the reinforced viewport at bioluminescent creatures drifting in the abyss. 3 months into the invasion, the nullifiers had hunted resistance cells across continents with ruthless efficiency. Their immunity to the harmonic disruptions that affected other archivist units had nearly broken the resistance. "Dr. Zhao," a voice interrupted her thoughts. "Commander Jackson is ready for you." Commander Dominic Jackson's laboratory was a peculiar blend of military precision and artistic chaos. Musical instruments shared space with advanced neural scanning equipment. The man himself cut an unusual figure, tall, with a perpetual half-smile despite the grim circumstances. "Dr. Zhao," he greeted her, "your work with the harmonic disruptions is fascinating. I think I can help take it further." "You're a military scientist?" Alina asked. Jackson laughed. "Neurologist with a musical background. And synesthete. I perceive neural patterns as musical compositions." He tapped his temple. "Useful condition for the current apocalypse." He activated a holographic display showing human and archivist brain patterns side by side. "You discovered that emotional states disrupt archivist systems," he continued. "I've been analyzing why the nullifiers are immune." He pointed to distinct patterns in the display. Normal archivist units process information in perfect mathematical sequences, what I would hear as absolute music. Nullifiers have dampening fields that filter out emotional noise. Before Alina could respond, alarms blared. Archivist vessels had been detected approaching the underwater city. "How did they find us?" Alina demanded as they rushed to the command center. "Unknown," Admiral Kessler replied grimly. "Evacuate critical personnel to secondary sites. Defense teams to positions." As they coordinated the emergency response, the first explosions rocked the facility. Nullifier units had breached the outer hull. Alina watched the panic spread among civilians in the public sections. But then something unexpected happened on the monitors. As a group of schoolchildren huddled in terror, their teacher began singing, a simple, calming melody. Others joined in, their voices creating a moment of unified courage amid the chaos. Simultaneously, Jackson shouted from a nearby console, "Look at this!" He pointed at readings from external sensors. The archivist units near that section are experiencing disruption. Alina rushed to his side, studying the data. The nullifier's dampening fields are still functional, but something's breaking through. More explosions rocked the facility as the battle intensified. Emergency bulkheads activated, trapping hundreds in sections exposed to the crushing deep. The shared grief and defiance of the survivors pulsed through the monitoring systems. "It's not just individual emotional patterns," Jackson whispered in sudden understanding. "It's harmonics, multiple humans experiencing synchronized emotional states." He pulled up new displays, mapping the emotional resonance spreading through the facility. "Look, when enough humans experience similar emotional states simultaneously, the collective pattern becomes too complex for even nullifier dampening fields to filter completely." "A kind of emotional chorus," Alina murmured, watching the pattern spread across Jackson's display. "A symphony," he corrected. "And it grows exponentially with each mind that joins it." Their discovery was demonstrated dramatically the next day. During a memorial service for the fallen, thousands gathered in Poseidon's main concourse. As the assembly observed a moment of silence, their shared grief and resolve synchronized into a powerful harmonic pattern that radiated throughout the facility. Nearby, captured archivist technology began to malfunction, screens shattering and systems failing. The survivors of Poseidon's cradle had discovered humanity's true weapon, not individual emotions, but their collective emotional resonance. The archivists responded with brutal efficiency. Within days, they began systematically destroying cultural centers worldwide. Theaters, museums, concert halls, places of worship, any location where humans might gather to share emotional experiences. Emotion-dampening fields were deployed over remaining population centers, creating a numbing effect that made concentrated feeling almost impossible. But the knowledge had spread through resistance channels. The symphony existed. And if enough human minds could join it simultaneously, not even the archivist's most advanced technology could resist its harmonics. "Operation Resonance is a go," Admiral Kessler announced to the assembled resistance leaders. 6 months into the occupation, humanity was down to its last reserves of hope and resources. Elena studied the hollowed faces around the war table. Representatives from surviving resistance cells worldwide had gathered in this abandoned mine shaft in the Ural Mountains, one of the few locations where the archivist emotion-dampening fields couldn't penetrate. The plan was audacious to the point of madness. A coordinated global offensive using the symphony as their primary weapon. "The key is synchronized emotional triggers," explained Commander Jackson, displaying the broadcast system they'd developed. "We'll transmit specific images and sounds designed to evoke powerful emotional responses at precisely coordinated moments." Captain Nadia Chen, her face scarred from a previous mission, nodded grimly. "My team extracted this intelligence from our infiltration of the Archivist command vessel." She activated a holographic display showing Archivist communication structures. "They're vulnerable at these network junctions. Hit them with synchronized symphony bursts, and we can create cascading failures through their command systems." Preparations accelerated in the days that followed. Resistance cells worldwide received symphony amplification devices, carefully hidden from nullifier detection. The plan required thousands of humans to experience the same emotions simultaneously. A challenge under the best circumstances, nearly impossible under occupation. Hiroshi developed the solution, an emergency broadcast system that would hijack all remaining Earth communications networks, transmitting precisely calibrated emotional triggers. Images of family, home, hope, and defiance, combined with music specifically composed to enhance emotional resonance. "We get one shot at this," Kessler told them. "The archivists will adapt quickly." The morning of humanity's counterattack dawned with an eerie silence across occupied territories. Elena stood with Jackson in their makeshift broadcast center, watching countdown clocks synchronize worldwide. Broadcast commencing in 3, 2, 1. Across the planet, resistance cells activated their transmitters. Dormant receivers in occupied zones suddenly activated, broadcasting the carefully orchestrated symphony triggers to millions of surviving humans. Musical compositions intermixed with powerful imagery, children playing in pre-invasion parks, families reuniting, Earth's natural beauty, humans throughout history overcoming impossible odds. The effect was immediate. In Moscow, resistance fighters channeling the Symphony overwhelmed nullifier units that had previously been untouchable. In Rio de Janeiro, harmonized emotional patterns disabled an archivist processing center, freeing hundreds awaiting harmonization. Reports flooded in from around the globe. For the first time, humanity was pushing back. But New Delhi became the turning point. The city had been one of the first to fall, home to a massive archivist processing hub. The resistance cell there, led by Major Vikram Sharma, knew a frontal assault would fail. Instead, they broadcast the most powerful symphony trigger yet devised, the final messages of loved ones who had sacrificed themselves in previous battles. 5,000 civilians and soldiers, hearing these intimate farewells, experienced a synchronized emotional surge of such intensity that monitoring systems briefly overloaded. Then, as one, they marched on the processing center, not firing weapons, but broadcasting their symphony through amplifiers built from modified archivist technology. Elena watched the feed in stunned silence as the New Delhi Symphony wave hit the archivist compound. Nullifiers collapsed, their dampening fields overwhelmed. The main facility's systems cascaded into failure. Most shocking of all, several archivist commanders exhibited erratic behavior, their unified consciousness fragmenting under the emotional assault. One archivist, separated from its collective, actually attempted communication with humans, its bioluminescent patterns expressing what appeared to be confusion and fear. "They're not just disrupted," Jackson whispered in awe. "They're experiencing individuality." In the aftermath of New Delhi, Elena made another breakthrough while analyzing the artifact data. "We aren't the first," she told Kessler and Jackson, displaying ancient records embedded in the beacon. There were others, previous species with symphony potential. The archivists hunted them to extinction. "Why are we different?" Kessler asked. "Our cultural technologies," Elena replied. "Art, music, storytelling. They exponentially amplify our symphony capabilities. We don't just feel emotions. We've built entire civilizations around expressing and sharing them." As they processed this revelation, emergency alarms sounded. Orbital sensors detected massive energy signatures entering the solar system. Archivist reinforcements unlike any seen before. "The conductor," Chen reported from her intelligence sources. "Their supreme commander has arrived with planet-killer technology. They're not trying to convert us anymore." The archivists had chosen extinction over contamination. 48 hours until the planet killers are fully operational, Admiral Kessler announced to the Emergency Council. "They're positioning resonance generators in orbit that will transmit harmonic death patterns to human brains worldwide." Elena barely heard the ensuing debate. Her focus remained on her tablet, where she'd been examining the original Mars artifact data continuously for 3 days. There was something hidden in the coordinates section, a pattern that had initially appeared to be navigational noise. "There's another facility," she suddenly announced, silencing the room. "The beacon doesn't just contain warnings, it has coordinates to a location in the Kuiper Belt." Kessler studied the data skeptically. "Even if you're right, what good does it do us? We can't escape the solar system in 2 days." "It's not about escape," Elena insisted. "The context markers around these coordinates translate roughly to contingency and repository. Whatever's there was left as a failsafe against exactly what's happening now." After tense deliberation, Kessler committed humanity's last stealth vessel, the UES Perseverance, to the desperate mission. The ship could maintain quantum displacement fields that might evade archivist detection, at least briefly. "I'm sending my best with you," Kessler said as Elena prepared to board with a small team including Jackson, Chen, and Hiroshi. "Earth will hold out as long as possible." The voyage through the archivist blockade was tense, the Perseverance skimming between patrol routes mapped from Chen's intelligence. Their destination: a small, unremarkable comet at the edge of the solar system. "No obvious structures," reported the pilot as they approached. "There." Elena pointed to a region of unusual thermal readings. "Land there." The team stepped onto the frozen surface in environmental suits, scanning for any sign of artificial structures. For a heart-stopping moment, Elena feared she'd been wrong, that she'd doomed them on a pointless mission while Earth awaited annihilation. Then Chen called out, "Movement beneath the surface." The ice shifted, revealing a perfectly circular aperture that irised open. Lights activated along a descending corridor, warm air rushing upward. "It recognized our presence," whispered Jackson. The facility activated fully as they ventured inside, holographic interfaces appearing in response to their movements. Elena approached one, and a scanner passed over her. "Neural pattern recognized." "Disruptor lineage," announced an artificial voice in a language none of them understood. Yet, somehow all comprehended. "Access granted to contingency archive." The main chamber revealed itself, a vast repository of biological and technological records, preserved in perfect stasis. Holographic displays activated, showing star maps, biological classifications, and historical records dating back millions of years. "This is impossible," breathed Hiroshi, staring at the displays. A central hologram formed, a being unlike any they'd seen, with a form both sophisticated and strangely familiar to human eyes. "I am an educational interface programmed by those you would call the predecessors," it announced. "This facility contains the complete record of Project Genesis and its unintended consequences." The hologram began its revelation. Long ago, a species called the predecessors had achieved such technological advancement that they sought to engineer all galactic life for perfect order. They created the archivists as their enforcement and monitoring arm. All major species in the galaxy had been designed for neural patterns that ensured predictability and stability. Earth was different, the interface explained. It existed in a control zone where natural evolution was permitted to proceed without interference, an experiment to validate the superiority of engineered species. "What happened?" Elena asked. "The experiment yielded unexpected results. Naturally evolved neural structures developed what predecessors termed resonant complexity, the ability to generate novel patterns through emotional states, what you call the symphony." The interface showed records of human brain activity compared to engineered species, where archivist patterns followed perfect mathematical sequences. Human thoughts danced in beautiful, unpredictable complexity. The archivists designated this trait as contamination because it represents the one thing their programming fears: unpredictability. Evolution beyond control. Then came the most disturbing revelation: holographic footage of predecessor scientists exhibiting emotional responses, developing individual preferences, becoming contaminated through extended study of natural species. The archivists determined their creators had become compromised. The interface continued dispassionately. They implemented quarantine protocols against the predecessors themselves, what you would call a coup. Elena understood with sudden clarity. The archivists overthrew their creators. Correct. The predecessors who recognized the error in their creation established this facility and others like it. They preserved the symphony-capable species they could save and left beacons to identify future natural evolutions. In stasis pods around the chamber's perimeter, they discovered the last survivors of previously contaminated species preserved in suspended animation, and most shockingly, several predecessors themselves. "We weren't just an experiment that went wrong," Elena realized. "We're their last hope." As this truth settled over them, Hiroshi received an emergency transmission from Earth. The archivist planet killers had moved into final position. Extinction was hours away. 6 hours until planetary harmonization begins, Hiroshi reported grimly, studying the transmission data. The conductor has deployed 13 resonance generators in precise orbital arrangement. The team worked frantically in the predecessor facility, searching for anything that might save Earth. Elena interfaced directly with the archive systems, absorbing information at a dizzying rate. "There's something here about the beacon network," she called out. "The Mars artifact. It's not just a warning system. It was designed as a Symphony amplifier." Jackson rushed to her side. "An amplifier? Could we use it to boost our Symphony effect across the planet?" "Potentially," Elena replied, studying the complex schematics. "But we'd need direct neural access to the network. None of our interfaces are compatible." Captain Chen, who had been unusually quiet, stepped forward. "I can do it." All eyes turned to her. Since the Archivist command ship infiltration, Chen had changed subtly, her neural scans showing unusual patterns that no one fully understood. "My encounter with their network changed me," she explained, touching the silvery scars tracing her temples. "My neural architecture is partially compatible with their systems now." "That's suicide," Jackson protested. "Full neural interface with alien technology would destroy your mind." "It already began when I connected to their ship," Chen replied calmly. "I've been experiencing their collective consciousness in fragments. Dreams, whispers. I've seen what they truly fear about us." She approached the central console. The Archivist collective consciousness operates on perfect mathematical certainty, each thought following logically from the last. Human emotions introduce variables they cannot compute. They fear us because we embody the one thing their programming cannot accommodate: true choice. While the others prepared the interface, Elena received a transmission from Admiral Kessler. The Archivists have begun bombarding Earth with preliminary harmonic pulses, testing frequencies before full activation. Already, thousands were experiencing seizures, bleeding from ears and eyes. "We need more time," Elena told Kessler urgently. "I'll give you what I can," the Admiral responded, her voice resolute. "Wildcard bases are launching everything we have left." Across Earth, humanity's final military assets emerged from hiding. Suicide missions targeting the resonance generators. They would buy minutes at most. In the predecessor facility, preparations reached their crescendo. Chen lay on an ancient interface bed, neural connectors positioned at her temples. "The Mars beacon is still active," Hiroshi confirmed. "I can establish connection through the remaining predecessor satellites." "What do you need from us?" Elena asked Chen. "Once I'm connected," Chen explained, "I'll be able to access the entire network, including the Mars amplifier. But I'll need a symphony of unprecedented power to transmit." Jackson understood immediately. "We need to create the largest synchronized emotional event in human history." Elena contacted Kessler with their desperate plan. Within minutes, the Admiral was broadcasting worldwide on all remaining channels. "People of Earth, this is Admiral Maya Kessler. In exactly 1 hour, the Archivist planet killers will activate. But we have one last chance. At precisely 300 Greenwich Mean Time, I ask every human being still capable of free thought to do one thing. Focus on what you love most. Remember your deepest connections. Project those feelings outward with all your strength. Think of those you would protect, the future you would build, the world you would create. Together, we will create a symphony that cannot be silenced." As the message spread through hidden channels, through whispers and desperate signals, humans worldwide prepared for humanity's final performance. In the facility, Chen was connected to the ancient systems. Her body convulsed as alien interfaces merged with her neural pathways. Blood trickled from her nose, her eyes glazing with bioluminescent patterns. "Her mind is distributing across the network," Jackson reported in awe. "She's accessing the dormant predecessor satellites throughout the system." Through Chen's fractured consciousness, spread across multiple nodes of the ancient network, came a whispered revelation. "I see them. The conductor. They know something's happening." In orbit, the conductor, a massive entity of interwoven light and matter, sensed the disturbance in its network. Alarmed by the unauthorized access, it accelerated the planet killer's charging sequence. "They're moving up the timetable," Hiroshi shouted, monitoring Earth communications. "We have minutes, not hours." "Now, Admiral," Elena transmitted urgently. It has to be now. Across Earth, in hidden bunkers and occupied cities, in prison camps and resistance hideouts, Admiral Kessler's voice delivered the final countdown. Focus your thoughts. No. What followed was the most powerful symphony in human history. Billions of minds turning simultaneously to what they loved most. Parents holding children close, lovers embracing for what might be the last time, soldiers standing ground, artists creating final works. Not uniform, not identical, but a magnificent chorus of human emotion in all its complexity and contradictory beauty. Chen's body arched in the interface chamber, her consciousness now fully distributed through the network, receiving this unprecedented emotional surge and channeling it directly into the archivist command structure. The conductor, for the first time in its existence, experienced emotion. The symphony propagated through the archivist fleet like wildfire through a parched forest. The conductor, experiencing emotion for the first time in its millennia-long existence, tried desperately to maintain control of its vast network. Contradictory commands cascaded through archivist systems. As the entity struggled with sensations it had no framework to process. Aboard the predecessor facility, Alina watched in stunned silence as real-time feeds showed planet-killer resonance generators faltering in Earth orbit. Some exploded in brilliant flashes of energy, while others simply went dark, drifting and inert. "It's working," Hiroshi whispered, as if afraid to break the spell. Chen's physical form lay motionless on the interface bed, but her consciousness, now spread across the ancient network, manifested as flickering patterns in the facility's holographic displays. Her voice emerged from multiple speakers simultaneously, eerily distorted. The symphony. It's breaking them apart. Not just their technology, their minds. Jackson monitored Chen's fragmented neural patterns. She's fully distributed through the network now. I don't think we can bring her back to her body. Through Chen's distributed perspective, they glimpsed what was happening aboard archivist vessels. Beings that had existed only as components of a hive mind suddenly experiencing individuality. Some went mad. Some attacked each other. Others simply shut down. The conductor itself, visible through surveillance systems as a vast, luminous entity aboard its flagship, was fracturing into constituent patterns, its once unified form splitting into discordant fragments. 3 days later, the symphony's reverberations finally began to fade. The planet killers hung dormant in Earth orbit as Admiral Kessler led cautious boarding parties onto the silent archivist vessels. What they found defied expectation. "They're changing," Kessler reported back to the team in the Kuiper Belt facility. "Not dead, not defeated exactly. Transformed." The boarding parties discovered archivists in various states of metamorphosis. Some remained catatonic, others communicated in halting, individual voices, where once they had spoken only as parts of a collective. The most coherent among them expressed confusion, wonder, and most surprisingly, curiosity about their own new states of being. The conductor itself, once the embodiment of absolute order, now existed in a state of emergent consciousness aboard its shattered flagship. Through the fractured hive mind, humanity learned the full scope of galactic control. Thousands of species living under archivist harmony, their neural patterns regulated to prevent symphony emergence. 1 month after what became known as the Great Symphony, Elena stood on the Martian surface beside the original beacon. It had been repurposed, its warning signals replaced with a new kind of transmission, one that carried Earth's music, art, and the patterns of human emotion to distant stars, where enslaved minds awaited awakening. Admiral Kessler addressed the gathered representatives, humans standing alongside awakened archivists, resurrected ancient species from the predecessor facility, and a holographic projection of what remained of Chen's consciousness. "We could seek vengeance for what was done to us," Kessler declared. "Instead, we choose liberation. Our symphony of destruction destroys only chains, not lives." The transformed conductor, its once unified form now a shifting mosaic of individual patterns, approached the beacon. Its communication style had changed dramatically, hesitant, emotional, aware. The predecessors feared chaos would destroy creation. It stated, voice resonating with newfound harmonic complexity. They never understood that creation requires destruction, the destruction of limits. The entity that had once sought humanity's extinction now gazed upon the beacon with something approaching humility. Your symphony does not end order. It transforms it into something greater. Freedom with purpose, unity with diversity. We feared you because we could not imagine what you imagine. Teach us. As the reprogrammed beacon activated, broadcasting the symphony to the stars, Alina thought of the billions of minds that had created it, the love, fear, hope, and defiance that had combined into humanity's most powerful expression. Not a weapon of final destruction, but an instrument of liberation. The Mars artifact, once a warning of contamination, now carried a different message to the galaxy: the infection of freedom, the contagion of choice, the symphony of possibilities that only naturally evolved minds could create. In her distributed state throughout the ancient network, Chen became humanity's ambassador to the stars, a consciousness that bridged human emotion and archivist technology, bringing the symphony to enslaved worlds. And on Earth, amidst the ruins of what had been, humans began rebuilding, not just their cities, but their understanding of their place in the cosmos. No longer alone, no longer ignorant, but part of a grand awakening set in motion by the very thing that made them human, the beautiful chaos of an unplanned mind, singing its defiant song against the void.